Nima vыступление qilmoqda ham shu yerdami? Yo chiqamiz.
Assalomu alaykum hurmatli bugungi konferensiya ishtirokchilari, hurmatli mehmonlar. Bugun Toshkent davlat iqtisodiyot universiteti Samarqand filiali hamda Samarqand veterinar meditsina instituti, Andijon qishloq xo'jaligi va agrotexnologiya institutlari hamkorligida tashkil etilayotgan xalqaro ilmiy amaliy konferensiyani boshlashga ruxsat berasizlar. Konferensiyada Samarqand veterinar meditsina instituti konferensiya zalida bir qator ishtirokchilar, qatnashchilar, shuningdek Zoom platformasi orqali Germaniya, Angliya, Buyuk Britaniya, Polsha, Ruminiya, Ukraina, Armaniston hamda respublikamizning bir qator hududlaridan 100 ga yaqin ishtirokchilar qatnashmoqda. Birinchi kirish turini bizni germaniyalik hamkorimiz Vayshtefer Trizdorf Amaliy bilimlar universiteti prorektori Ralf Schlauderga beramiz. Dear guests, let me start today's conference organized jointly by Samarkand branch of Tashkent State University of Economics, Samarkand Veterinar Medicine Institute, Andijan Institute of Agrotechnology and Agriculture. At today's conference, there are about 150 participants participating from the conference hall of Samarkand Institute of Veterinary Medicine, and we have participants from different partner countries like Germany, United Kingdom, Romania, Ukraine, Poland, Armenia, and other countries, as well as our other participants from different universities and higher education establishments of Uzbekistan. So first welcome speech is given to Dr. Ralf Schlauder from University of Applied Science University of Vayshtefer.
Dear rectors, honored guests, colleagues, participants in this conference, welcome from my side. Also, my name is Ralf Schlauder. I'm from the University of Applied Sciences, Weihenstephan-Triesdorf, and it is my pleasure to give some welcome words on behalf of the project team, TOPAZ. TOPAZ is a short form for From Theoretical Oriented to Practical Education in Agrarian Studies. It was supported by the European Commission and Erasmus offices, and it's the wish of us to support our people in your countries and our countries to improve the living situation of people in rural areas by sharing knowledge, approaches, and experiences. Our partners are in this project from UK, the Riddle College, from Romania, the University of Agricultural Science and Veterinary Medicine of Iași. Yes, I can have my video, sorry. Of Iași. From Poland, Wrocław University of Environmental and Life Sciences, and our university in Germany, which I mentioned at the beginning. And its address, the partners are in Uzbekistan, the Samarkand branch of the Tashkent State University in Economics, Andijan Institute of Agriculture, Samarkand Veterinary Medicine Institute. Ukraine, it's the National University of Life and Environmental Sciences of Ukraine, the Sumy National Agricultural University, and in Armenia, Armenian National Agricultural University and Yerevan State University. Why have we started this project? What are the contents? The main contents is agriculture is an important sector in our countries. And with increasing modernization and competition, a high level of professional skills are demanded. Universities are the place where we have the higher education institutions to give this information and to transfer and to train our young people to be well prepared to take over responsibility in economy and society. But in the last decades, I think all of us have recognized that it's easy to transfer theoretical input, to have formulas, to have approaches. The theory is easy to transform and to give, but it seems very difficult to have the practical skills also given to our students and to the young generations. So the project aimed to improve the situation, to introduce and improve vocational-oriented practical programs, to fostering partnership between universities and stakeholders, farm, industry, associations, to improve the practical training in a real working environment, to provide a better match between job market needs and the qualification offered by us at the universities. And so we developed 5 major fields of work: revision of courses, course assessment and learning outcomes on agrarian management programs based on competence models. And one important part is to improve the internships for our students. The second was intensive teacher training programs to use the modern technologies available and to have an interactive teaching, which is student-centered teaching and not concentrating on the top-down approach. The third is capacity building and formation of supporting staff to monitor and administrate internship schemes according to our experiences in the European Union. The fourth is to raise awareness of practice-based education as a model for increasing cooperation with farm industry, enhancing employability. And the last one is to use internship and other possibilities to collect real data on farms which can be used for lecturing and which are at the same time a possibility to train our students how to get such data, how to use such data, and to have a real situation. These are the main tasks of these projects. And you can imagine, ladies and gentlemen, we are sitting now here with a crying eye and with a laughing eye. It's a crying eye because we cannot be with you in Samarkand and discuss together, look into our eyes and getting forward. But we are also happy to have the chance to present here our results, which we think are well prepared and which will support the development of agriculture by giving a more and a better education to your students. And I wish all of us an interesting conference, a good exchange, and that the results of TOPAZ, which are not only in form of changed curricula, but we also have developed a handbook, an online material which can be used, is a good information base to improve the lecturing and the training of your students in your countries. And I'm sure there will be other fields we have to take care for in the future. And we are looking forward to have a close relationship and cooperation to improve learning and teaching in our universities. I wish all of us an exciting, interesting conference and give the word back to Farhad. Thank you so much.
For your words. So next welcome speech given to Dr. Professor Khudanazar Yunusov, Rector of Samarkand Veterinary Medicine Institute. Следующее слово предоставляется Khudanazar Beknazаровичу Юнусову, ректору Самаркандского ветеринарно-медицинского института.
Здравствуйте, уважаемые гости, дамы и господа. Мне доставляет большое удовольствие видеть вас на этой международной конференции, проходящей в Самаркандском институте ветеринарной медицины и проводимой совместно с Самаркандским филиалом Ташкентского государственного экономического университета и Андижанским институтом сельского хозяйства и агротехнологий. Добро пожаловать в наш институт и на нашу конференцию.
Good afternoon, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to see you at this international conference held at the Samarkand branch of the Tashkent State Economic University the Indian Institute of Agriculture and Agricultural Technologies. Welcome to our university.
На сегодняшней встрече участвуют в формате видеоконференции наши партнеры из университета Вайнштефана Тресдорф, Германия, университета колледжа Ритил, Великобритания, Вроцлавского университета естественных наук Польши и из университета сельского хозяйства и ветеринарии ИАССА, Румыния, Армянский национальный аграрный университет, Ереванского государственного университета, Украинского национального университета жизни и природных наук, Шумского национального аграрного университета и ряд другие участники. От имени коллектива нашего института я благодарю всех участников конференции.
Our partners from Westphal-Tresdorf University, Germany, Retail University College, Great Britain, Wrocław University of Life Sciences, Poland, and IASA University of Agriculture and Veterinary Medicine, Romania, Armenian National Agrarian University, Yerevan State University, Ukrainian National University of Life and Natural Sciences, Sumy National Agrarian University, and other participants. On behalf of the staff of our institute, I would like to thank the participants of the conference.
Наш институт ведет интенсивную деятельность по внедрению мирового опыта в систему высшего аграрного образования путем укрепления международного сотрудничества для подготовки высококвалифицированных специалистов по ветеринарной медицине, животноводству, биотехнологии, сельского хозяйства и аграрной экономике.
Our institute is actively involved in introducing world experiences into the system of higher agriculture education by strengthening international cooperation to train highly qualified specialists in veterinary medicine, animal husbandry, biotechnology, agriculture, and agricultural economics.
Институт сотрудничает с более чем 80 ведущими профильными научно-образовательными учреждениями ряда развитых стран, с такими странами, как Германия, Великобритания, Соединенные Штаты Америки, Польша, Греция, Чехия, Эстония, Корея, Япония, Португалия, Россия, Китай, Латвия и рядом других стран. Заключены договоры по внедрению современных педагогических технологий, основанных на международные образовательные стандарты, широкое внедрение образовательных программ и учебно-методических материалов, привлечение в научно-педагогическую деятельность высококвалифицированных иностранных преподавателей и ученых, а также по стажировке педагогов и научных сотрудников.
Cooperates with more than 80 leading specialized scientific and educational institutions of a number of developed countries such as Germany, Great Britain, USA, Poland, Greece, Czech Republic, Estonia, Korea, Japan, Portugal, Russia, China, Latvia, and others. Agreements have been concluded for the introduction of modern pedagogical technologies based on international educational standards, the widespread introduction of educational programs and teaching and methodological materials, the involvement of highly qualified foreign teachers in scientific and pedagogical activities, and the training of teachers and researchers.
Для этой цели обучение студентов и магистрантов, организация стажировок молодых преподавателей и исследователей за счет международных грантовых проектов создают хорошие условия профессорско-преподавательскому составу для ведения научных исследований.
For this purpose, the training of students and undergraduates, the organization of internships for young teachers and researchers through international grant projects, create good conditions for the teaching staff to conduct scientific research.
Основная цель этого проекта, программы Erasmus+ Европейского Союза, ТОПАС, от теоретика ориентированного до практического обучения в аграрных исследованиях. Обеспечение перехода от образовательной системы, основанной на теории, к образовательной системе, ориентированной для студента и основанной на практике в области высшего образования, сельского хозяйства отвечает актуальным задачам, поставленным перед системой высшего образования правительством Узбекистана. И коллектив нашего института по результатам прошедших 4 лет деятельности проекта достигли целей и задачи настоящего проекта.
The main objective of this project of the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union TAPAS, from international theoretical to practical training in agricultural research, is to ensure the transition from a theory-based educational system to a student-centered and practice-based education in the field of agriculture higher education response. The urgent task set for the higher education system by the government of Uzbekistan and the staff of our institute, based on the result of the past 4 years of the project, achieved the goals and objectives of the project.
Я благодарю всех вас за вашу работу, вклад, помощь и уделенное время.
I thank all of you for your work, input, help, and time.
Желаю успехов на сегодняшней конференции и надеюсь на дальнейшее сотрудничество по направлениям.
I wish you success at today's conference and look forward to further cooperation. Thanks.
Спасибо большое, Владимир Николаевич. Thank you very much. So next, welcome of guests is given to Professor Olim Murtazayev, the director of Samarkand branch of Tashkent State University of Economics. Следующее слово предоставляется профессору Муртазаеву Олиму, директору Самаркандской филиала Ташкентского государственного экономического университета.
Assalomu alaykum, hurmatli xalqaro ilmiy konferensiya ishtirokchilari. Avvalo, Samarqand shahriga xalqaro ilmiy konferensiyaga xush kelibsizlar.
Good afternoon, dear participants of the International Scientific Conference. First of all, welcome to Samarkand.
Bugun ajoyib kun. Bizning xalqaro aloqalar doirasida ishtirok etayotganimizga 20 yil bo'ldi. Ehtimol bu uncha uzoq muddat emasdir. Lekin bizning jamoa uchun Toshkent davlat iqtisodiyot universiteti Samarqand filiali jamoasi uchun qadrli, sharafli va esda qoladigan davrdir. Bu o'tgan davrda biz ko'plab xalqaro loyihalarda ishtirok etdik. Talabalar almashuvi amalga oshirildi. Professor o'qituvchilar, yosh assistentlar xorijdan malaka oshirishdi. O'nlab xalqaro konferensiyalar va seminarlar o'tkazildi. Ilmiy tadqiqotlar olib borildi. Ilmiy maqolalar, monografiyalar, o'quv uslubi materiallar tayyorlandi. Xullas, fan, ta'lim va ishlab chiqarish integratsiyasi yo'lga qo'yildi bu davrda.
Today is a wonderful day. We have been participating in international relations for 20 years. Probably not that long, but for our team, for the team of the Samarkand branch of the Tashkent State University of Economics, is a personal, honorable, and memorable period. During this time, we have participated in many international projects, student exchanges, training of professors and young assistants abroad, dozens of international conferences and seminars. Scientific researchers, scientific articles, monographs were conducted. Teaching materials have been prepared. Integration of science, education, and industry has been launched.
Bu aloqalarning markazida albatta Germaniyaning nufuzli universitetlari, ilmiy tadqiqot institutlari turadi. 2004-yildan boshlab to hozirgacha Germaniyaning Weichstation amaliy bilimlar universiteti bilan shartnomaga ko'ra magistrlar tayyorlamoqda. Bu hamkorlik doirasida 2014-yil 24 martda xuddi shu universitet bilan bizning filialimiz birgalikda qo'shma dastur bo'yicha imzolangan shartnomaga asosan bakalavriat tayyorlashga kirishilgan.
At the heart of these relations, of course, are the prestigious universities and research institutes of Germany. Since 2004, masters have been trained under a contract with the Weichstation Tresdorf University of Applied Science in Germany. Within the framework of this cooperation, on March 24, 2019, the same university and the Samarkand branch of Tashkent State University signed an agreement on a joint program for the preparation of bachelors.
Bugun o'z faoliyatini boshlagan xalqaro miqyosda o'tkaziladigan agrar tarmoqda innovatsion iqtisodiyotni rivojlantirish masalalari mavzusidagi konferensiya O'zbekiston Respublikasi Prezidentining 2018-20 sentyabrdagi 55-44 sonli farmoni va hamda 20-yil 30-iyuldagi 47-95 son Prezident qarorida ko'zda tutilgan vazifalarning ijrosini ta'minlash maqsadida Toshkent davlat iqtisodiyot universiteti Samarqand filialida Germaniyaning Weinstein Triesif amaliy bilimlari universiteti shuningdek xorijiy va mahalliy hamkorlar birgalikda tashkil etildi.
Decree of the President of the Republic of Uzbekistan, number 5544 of September 21, 2018, on approval of the Strategy of Innovative Development of the Republic of Uzbekistan in 2019 and 2021. Issues of Uzbekistan in the development of innovative economy in the agricultural sector and the Weinstein Triesdorf University of Applied Science in Germany, as well as foreign and local partners in order to ensure the implementation of the tasks set in the Autumn Resolution number 4795 of July 30, 2020 on measures to further improve the agricultural education system co-founded.
Mazkur anjuman dunyoning barcha mamlakatlari va hududlaridan ilmiy izlanuvchilar uchun yangi fikr va tajriba almashish, biznes yoki ilmiy tadqiqot aloqalarini yo'lga qo'yish va kelgusida amalga oshiriladigan ishlarda hamkorlik topish uchun ajoyib imkoniyatlar yaratadi. O'tkazilayotgan xalqaro ilmiy anjuman filialda Yevropa Ittifoqi Erasmus+, Agrodev va Topaz dasturlari loyihalari doirasida bajarilayotgan ishlar bilan hamohangdir.
This conference is a great opportunity for researchers from all over the world to exchange new ideas and experiences, establish business or research contacts, and find partners for future work. The ongoing International Scientific Conference at the branch is directly related to the European Union Erasmus+, agro-development and the work being done.
Konferensiyada mamlakat agrar sohalardagi muammolar, ularning yechimi va rivojlantirish imkoniyatlari, xorij tajribasi va ularni tatbiq etish bo'yicha taklif va tavsiyalar ishlab chiqiladi. Tayyorlanadigan ilmiy takliflar va amaliy tavsiyalar kelajakda respublikada agrar sohani va uning fanini rivojlantirishda muhim ahamiyat kasb etadi deb o'ylayman.
The conference will develop problems in the agricultural sector of the country, their solution and development opportunities, and the framework of TOPAZ programs, proposals, and recommendations on foreign experience and their implementations. I believe that prepared scientific proposals and practical recommendations will play an important role in the future development of the agricultural sector and its science in the country.
Men fursatdan foydalanib, bizning doimiy hamkorimiz Germaniyaning Weinstein Triesdorf amaliy bilimlar universiteti va prorektori professor janob Schlauderga, boshqa xorijiy va mahalliy hamkorlarimizga minnatdorchilik bildiraman.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank our permanent partner, Professor Schlauderer, a representative of the Weinstein Triesdorf University of Applied Science in Germany, and other foreign and domestic partners. I wish the conference every success, good health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Matazaev. Next, the welcome speech is given to Rector of Andijan Institute of Agriculture and Agri-Technology, Professor Kamiljon Kamilov. Keyingi so'z navbati Andijon qishloq xo'jaligi va agri-texnologiya instituti rektori Professor Kamiljon Kamilovga.
Avvalambor assalomu alaykum. Hurmatli konferensiya ishtirokchilari, hurmatli mehmonlar. Men Andijon qishloq xo'jaligi agri-texnologiya instituti o'quvchilari bo'yicha prorektori Atajanov Murodjonman. Rektorimiz hozir uzr so'rab, uzrli sabablarga ko'ra ishtirok eta olmayapti, shuning uchun o'rinlariga men ishtirok etyapman.
Oh. Can you repeat, please? I couldn't hear. I wasn't ready.
So, Professor Kamilov, He urgently had to leave the meeting. He is replaced by first vice rector on academics.
Yevropa Ittifoqining Erasmus Plus Tops loyihasi yakuniy yig'ilishi qatnashchilari hamda agrar tarmoqda innovatsion iqtisodiyotni rivojlantirish masalalari nomli xalqaro ilmiy amaliy konferensiya ishtirokchilariga Andijon qishloq xo'jaligi va agrar texnologiyalar instituti jamoasi nomidan masofaviy tarzda bo'lsa-da, sizlarga salomlar yo'llayotganimdan bag'oyatda xursandman.
Really glad to see you all here, and it might be online conference, but I will be very happy to see you here.
Shu o'rinda TOPS loyihasi bo'yicha qadrdon hamkorlarimiz Weinsteffen Trisdorf Amaliy fanlar universiteti, Retail universiteti, Wroclaw atrof muhit va tabiiy fanlar universiteti, IASI qishloq xo'jaligi fanlari va veterinariya universiteti, Ukraina atrof muhit va tabiiy fanlar milliy universiteti, Sumy milliy agrar universiteti, Armaniston milliy agrar universiteti, Yerevan milliy universiteti hamda Samarqand veterinariya meditsina instituti vakillariga chuqur minnatdorchilik bildiraman.
Our dear partners in the TOPAS project are Weinstein Trisdorf University of Applied Sciences, Retail University, Wroclaw University of Environmental and Natural Sciences, ESC University of Agricultural Sciences and Veterinary Medicine, National University of Environment and Natural Science of Ukraine, Sumy National Agrarian University, National Agrarian University of Armenia. I would like to express my deep gratitude to the representatives of the Yerevan National University and the Samarkand Institute of the Veterinary Medicine. We'll be glad to see you at the twice planned project seminar at our Andijan Institute of Agriculture and Agri-Technology, but I'm sorry that the pandemic didn't happen.
TOPAS loyihasi bizning jamoamizga ajoyib imkoniyatlarni taqdim etdi. Loyihada nazariyaga asoslangan ta'limdan amaliyotga asoslangan ta'limga o'tish bo'yicha keng qamrovli ishlar olib borildi.
The TOPAS project has provided our team with great opportunities. The project carried our intensive work on the transition from the theory-based education to practice-based education. It includes new educational goals, skills, and knowledge in higher education in the field of agriculture in Ukraine, Armenia, and Uzbekistan.
Unda Ukraina, Armaniston hamda O'zbekistonda qishloq xo'jaligi sohasidagi oliy ta'limda yangi ta'lim maqsadlari, malaka va ko'nikmalar asosida tuzilgan amaliy dasturlarni takomillashtirish bo'yicha Yevropa Ittifoqining hamkorlarimizning ilg'or tajribalari o'rganildi.
I will repeat one more time. It includes new educational goals, skills, and knowledge in higher education in the field of agriculture in Ukraine, Armenia, and Uzbekistan. The best practices of our partners in the European Union in improving the practical programs based on the principles were studied.
Amaliyot tashkil etish bo'yicha 4 xil tildagi o'quv qo'llanma barcha hamkorlar vakillari ishtirokida video darslar, prezentatsiyalar tayyorlab joriy qilindi. Amaliy mashg'ulotlar uchun texnikalar va serverlar olindi. 5 nafar professor o'qituvchilarimiz va 6 nafar talabalarimiz Yevropadagi treninglarda qatnashdilar.
Internship manuals in 4 different languages, video lessons and presentations with the participation of all partners were introduced. Techniques and servers were purchased for practical training. 5 of our teachers and 6 of our students participated in trainings in Europe.
Loyiha natijalari institut ilmiy kengash yig'ilishlarida keng muhokama qilib borildi. Veb-saytlarimizda, ijtimoiy tarmoqlarda, viloyat televideniyasida keng targ'ib qilindi.
The results of the project were widely discussed at the meeting of the Academic Council of the Institute and were widely disseminated on our websites, social networks, and regional television.
Qisqa xulosa qiladigan bo'lsak, TOPAS loyihasi bizning xalqaro hamkorlarimizni yanada yuqori darajaga ko'tarishda hamda milliy va xalqaro reyting ko'rsatkichlarimizni sezilarli oshirishga xizmat qildi.
In short, The TOPAZ project has helped to raise our international cooperation to a higher level and significantly increase our national and international rankings.
O'ylaymanki, siz aziz hamkorlar bilan bundan keyin ham yangi g'oyalar bilan, yangi loyihalarda birga ko'p yillar davomida birgalikda ishlash nasib qiladi. Konferensiya ishiga muvaffaqiyat tilayman. E'tiboringiz uchun rahmat.
I think you and your dear partners will continue to work together for many years on new projects with new ideas. I wish the conference every success. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Katta rahmat. Endi bevosita konferensiya doirasidagi plenar sessiyaga qo'yilgan ma'ruzalarga o'tadigan bo'lsak, birinchi ma'ruza Polshaning Wroclaw tabiiy fanlar va atrof muhit universiteti professori Stanislav Mentaga beriladi. Bu talabalarni amaliyotga joylashtirishning asosiy O'zbekiston, Armaniston va Ukrainada talabalarni amaliyotga joylashtirish masalalariga bag'ishlangan. Dear participants, let us now turn to main presentations. So first presentation is presented by Dr. Stanislav Menta from Wrocław University of Environment and Life Sciences from Poland on the topic main problems and proposed solutions in the implementation of student placement at agrarian studies in Armenia, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan. Please, Dr. Menta, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for opportunity to be a part of your conference. We have some different times, so good afternoon in Uzbekistan and good morning in European countries. Today, I would like to share with you some information and result of our common work in TOPAZ project. The title of my presentation is Main Problems and Proposed Solutions in the Implementation of Student Placement at Agrarian Studies in Armenia, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan. If we're talking about some words about introduction, we should talk that there are many elements that influence to the quality of education and knowledge transfer. In this case, we should place special attention paid to maintain a proper balance between the theory and practical skills. Why are we talking about it? Because in many times, and this is not depend on countries or university, this is some universal situation. In many times, the education system focuses on increasing the knowledge. So it's too low pressure on practical training. And if we do in such a way educational process, we can see that we have limiting quantity and many times ignoring the importance of student placement workshops or internships in the education system. And this could be make some bad result in a sufficient competence of young people entering the labor market, because they perhaps know a lot about knowledge, about theory, but they have problem with use this knowledge in practice. So this is a really big problem. The organization of student placement is part of education of at universities level, and faces many different problems and limitations. Some of them are universal and some are a result from specific condition of given country or university. But nevertheless, one should try to improve the quality of this element of student education and find a way to solve the existing limitations. So this is our work, how to improve this part of education process at universities. What is the aim of my presentation? The main aim of my presentation is to identify the main problems and propose a way to solve them, to eliminate this limitation, these problems in the process of organizing student placement. Of course, we have special emphasis on university education in agriculture studies in Armenia, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan, because they are partner universities in TOPAZ project outside of European Union, and the focus of our work is especially for these countries. Some information about material methods that we have used in our work. We should speak that this consideration are the result of experience, knowledge, observation, and discussion of all members of our consortium. As you can see before, as you can heard before, in TOPAZ project, we have some university from European Union. This is my university from Wrocław, from Poland, university from Tiesdorf in Germany, University of Agriculture and Medicine, Veterinary Medicine from Romania, and Retail University College from Great Britain. And we have also 6 universities as partners outside European Union. 2 universities from Armenia, from Yerevan, 2 from Ukraine, from Kiev and Sumy, and 2 from Uzbekistan, from Samarkand and Andijan. This part of TOPAZ is directly related to the work package 1. The title of this work package is revision of bachelor and master internship programs in agrarian management and learning outcomes alignment. And this is, of course, integral part of the TOPAZ project. If we're talking about core of methods of material that we've used, source material are primary and secondary. To collect this data, we used the documentation method, brainstorm method, direct observation, and unstructured face-to-face interviews. And for presentation and for description of our result of our work of investigation, we use descriptive method. Here you can see, for example, some photos from our work that were very hard meetings, and we use a lot of different point of view and information and also documents. This was for discussion about problem with student placement at universities, and we wanted to share with our experience from European Union to partners universities. But to tell you the truth, if we look on whole our works and our results, I have to say that these problems and this solution that we find in our work, they are not only for partner countries, but this is also for using in other universities in other countries, also in my, for example, university or other university from European Union. So we have to say that this problem is universal, and many things, many problematic area are common. It's not depend from the situation in country or university, but some of them, of course, they are also related with our special situation. For example, this is related with different way of educational process, or for example, for special situation of our labor market or tradition in education, or for example, with relation between different parties that are interested in student placement. So now I would like to go further to the core of my presentation. So here some information about main areas that are problematic in organization of student placement at agricultural universities, and representatives of all partner universities, and of course from other university from Topaz project from European Union, pointed to various problems that hinder the proper course of the student placement process and the achievement of adequate effectiveness of this form of education at the academic level. Why we do that? Because we have a different situation, different point of view, and our goal is to find a good solution for the future. And of course, first step for that is diagnosis. What is wrong, or what is not so good, what we should improve if we're talking about student placement, about different form of practical education at academic level, especially in agrarian studies. On the basis of these discussions and comments, the most important problem area in this field of studies related to agriculture we identified, and of course, as I said before, this special emphasis we're to the countries like Armenia, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan. Thanks to the common work of our project consortium, we found 6 areas that we call important problems in student placement, in organizational student placement, and meet to a good effect of that. You can see here the list of these problems. They are common for our partner universities, so this is the reason that we especially talking about them. First area of problematic and limitation in our topic is duration and placing of placement in curricula. Second is lack of real interest and commitment from farms and agribusiness enterprises. Third, willingness to complete the placement only in a formal way. Fourth, financial support for student and academic staff and recognition of value of placement is not given in university. This is a big problem with financial support. And fifth, lack of an appropriate organization structure at the university to support effective student placement. And sixth, too low level or even lack of motivation of teaching staff, students, and industry. Now, I would like to say more words about each of these 6 areas. And I show you also the main solution, the main recommendation for fighting with these problems. So first is duration and placing of placement in curricula. This is a problem with our program of study, of our education process. And we found that in many cases, of course, different form of practical trainings we are in a bachelor or master students program in our partner universities, but many times we are short. So does it mean, for example, 1 week not more than 40 days in one cycle. And we should to know that the duration and the logical placing of the placement in the curricula is very relevant to success of this objective. Why? Because a student, if are going to the placement, to the internships, they should know a little bit about practical base. And after that, they can share and they can use this knowledge from first step of educational process in real life, in real enterprises, in real farms. And if we make some problems and we put the trainings, the placement, student placement in wrong way or in wrong place, or for example, too early or too late, this is problem with good join and good using of knowledge, and of course with preparing of these students. So students need time, and they need the possibility to work on farm to get really involved in the agricultural processes. From one side, the placement should not to be too short, because we have not so much time to see important elements of work in this farm of agribusiness enterprises. When we have too short time for student placement, this is unfortunately very often in reality. This is not effective, and students don't find enough skills and competences that are really important in real practice, in real business. Placement also have to be combined with the educational process, and therefore have to be put in a logical learning place with in curricula. From our side, that was the recommendation that the duration of student placement should be between 8 weeks to 6 months in one cycle. And especially this long period should be in last part of education, that give students enough time to catch theoretical knowledge, and after that enough time for using this knowledge in real life. And of course this time is wide. 8 weeks, this is not this is a little bit less than 2 weeks, and 6 months, this is half a year. So it's this time and the duration and of course the right place in the curricula is depending on the field of study and specialization, as well of organization and formal restriction at each university. What does it mean? For example, if we have a field of study for agriculture, for example, for farming methods and for example, how to cultivate crops or how to cultivate animals, breeding, we should more time for that, because this is, for example, related with climate conditions and with some process of technology in farms. So if we have only short time, for example, students can see how to see or how to spray of crops, but they don't see, then they cannot be a part of harvesting time. So this is the reason that some field of study can make shorter placement, student placement. For example, this is field of study like agribusiness or managing in farming. But if we're talking about farming method, about real life on the farms, we should think about more than 2 months. This optimal is about 6 months in one cycle to doing this placement. Second problematic area is lack of real interest and commitment from farms and agribusiness enterprises. We should remember that in case of placement, in case of apprenticeship, internships, agriculture enterprises at agrarian studies should be equal partners in the educational process. To tell you the truth, this is in each thing, in each case, because this is two main parties that organize the student placement. From one side is university, from second side is enterprises, is farm. So we should think that not only our position, our university, our academic position is higher, but we are equal, like this our partners from practical business. So a prerequisite for a successful student placement on their side is that the farms have the opportunity to offer the necessary internships. They should be interested in and motivated to do it, and are able to provide students with practical knowledge. We can see that in these places some special obstacles of limitation. For example, obstacles are the level of development of agriculture activity, farm equipment, and farmers' motivation. But the aim must be to establish trustful long-term cooperation between universities and businesses. So this is the recipe for a good organization of student placement. And of course, if we're talking about obstacles like different level of the development of agriculture activity or equipment in particular farm, we should also thinking about how to choose right place for student internships. And perhaps some people, some farmers are not interesting to be a part of this educational process because they thinking we are too small, we have not too good equipment, we don't want to share our knowledge. So the obstacles are in here, but we should thinking how to establish the trustful long-term cooperation and searching for these places, these entities that would like to work with us and with students. And of course, that will be a good place to learning about modern way of doing business. Third problem area is willingness to complete the placement only formally. Why are we talking about? So in reality, we can see that a lot of people thinking about time for placement, time for internship, only from formally point of view. Only they want to find a good paper with stamp. So in Russia, this is we find some bumashka, and we don't think about real effect and about real living and working during the placement. So if these people only want to catch the stamp and sign off some farmer or other businessman, of course we cannot say that this is effective student placement. This is only formally, this is only on the paper. They do that, they did this placement, that only on the paper, but in the hand, in the experience, we cannot find any good effective. So this is not only problem with students. This is also problem with academic staff that we as teachers don't pressure and don't thinking about great value of this time for our educational process. This is the first thing that I said today. So the searching for a balance between theoretical and practical education at universities. And of course, from side of scientists, from side of academic teachers, we have more focus on this theoretical pressure. But of course, if we thinking about theoretical, we forgot about practical learning. And if we show that our students, they thinking this is not so important. So we want to only make this stamp and design, and it's enough. But if we talking about good placement, about good internships, good placement need continuous, serious, and convincing input of the academic staff. This is our responsibility, because if academic staff don't don't show that placement is important, this is also visible from for farmers, for businessmen, and they this is not so good for our image in their opinion, because they're thinking that our education process is wrong. We make in a wrong way. We don't thinking about theory, and we only thinking about theory. So this is not so good for image of our university as a place that the education process is very well proceeding, and this is also not so good for our image about contact with practice and with thinking about not only about our point of view, but also from the practical side. So it is important to develop effective communication tools between students and teachers during the placement. So this is also very important, how to supervising the placement, student placement. And in this area, we think that good and comfortable communication will be helpful in developing real contacts and in the supervision of the placement. Without communication, without talking about how important is student placement and real showing that we really are interested in that, students are not interesting to do is in serious way. Only they would thinking about student placement as formally think. Next problematic area is financial support for students and academic staff during the student placement, and of course recognition of value of placement, because most of the universities have problem with this support and not given special support for students and these people from academic staff who are involved in student placement. Especially we talking here about cover the cost of transport and some remuneration for academic staff or for students during the placement, because mostly student placements are free. The students cannot or that they don't make money from this time. This is only our place, only something that they have to do in the education process but they don't have money for their work. So this is the problem, because many times if we find some good place for doing practical trainings, we have to go a lot of kilometers. We have to spend some times there, and of course this is special cost of that. And we think that cost of transport or remuneration for time spent to visit students during the placement should be covered by the university. But frankly speaking, this is also something to statement to our government, because university many times are related or depend on public money. So without this money from public system, we don't have, of course, money for giving our academic staff or our students as remuneration or recover to cost of transport for student placement. And the second place here is also educational value of student placement, because this should be also be appreciated. If we talking about that and we show as I talking about government, about managing of universities, that this is also important part of education process. The motivation of lecturers is strong. And if we're talking about money, entrepreneurs can also participate in this cost by funding, for example, some special scholarship or a fund for students, or many times they give, for example, a special place like hotel, working hotel or something like that. And for example, students don't have money for their work, but they have also for free some accommodation or some food or remuneration for the time they spending in this place. But if we're talking about commitment, our involvement of entrepreneurs and their willingness to pay for student placement, this is depends, of course, especially from situation the local labor market. So if we have a lot of unemployment people, the unemployment rate is high, of course, the motivation from entrepreneurs side is not so big. If we have problem with people to work, and we have to searching for working force, of course, the motivation and the real financial support for student placement from the entrepreneur side is higher. Next thing, this is lack of an appropriate organization structure at the university to support effective student placement. When we working in with university created Topaz Consortium, we find this problem because in our countries in European Union, we have special structures and special, I don't know, perhaps this is some department, perhaps this is some special working place, but these people, this cell of our structure in university, it's only focused on student placement. And in our partner university, in many times that we are problems with that, with this structure, with these special places, with special working place in university structure. And if we would like to good placement process making, we have to also create special structure, special job, special place, and people that are interesting and they are know how it's work and how to help students and how to improve this process in the future. Next problem is too low level or lack of motivation of teaching staff, student, and industry. I said before a little bit about that, but we should know that in student placement we have different parties that are interesting in this topic. Of course, they are mostly students and universities, but of course, this is also a side of practical like agribusiness and farmers and state institution and full society. So they are different parties, they are different entities, and of course they are many times different goals to catch, and these goals many times are different than other groups. But in each case, we see that it's important how to motivate, how to positively motivate students, academic staff, and representatives of industry to involvement, to commitment to the student placement. And we should think that motivation depends on the various factors, of course. One is that the effort invested is not reflected in the benefits obtained. So, for example, students are not awareness about the benefits of the time spending on student placement. This is, for example, higher practical skills, possibility to find a good place for work in the future, or, for example, good sentence in our curriculum vitae. From side of agribusiness, mostly they are searching for working force. If they have problem with local labor market, they are interesting to find people from our side, for example, students that are also willing to work with them. If we're talking about state institution in university, this is also very important, because when we make in good way student placement, academic staff have a lot of opportunity to find good contact with practical, and they also can improve their scientific base, because they have contact and they see real problem from practical, not only from books, from internet. And if we're talking about industry involvement, there are some special placed in this problematic area. So here we have some list of proposed solutions how to make that industry will be more involvement in the student placement. For example, we should thinking about organizational round tables between representatives of university, farmers, entrepreneurs, and government. Second, industry partners are informed that data collected during the placement will benefit a company. They can improve their process, their organization or financial effects. Third, industry representatives are surveyed and interviewed about their needs and expectations of student skills and competences. Why we do that? Because we should ask our partner from business side, from farms, what they need, what they want from students after the education process, because they will be better prepared for the work in the future. And of course, farmers or businessmen in other entities, they have less work with preparation to work these people. Next proposition, updating curriculum according to industry requirements. So not only thinking about our point of view as academics, but also we hear and see also industry requirement, and we put this requirement into our curriculum. Next proposition, industry representatives are involved in the assessment process of students, so they can also give good or bad assessment, a good or bad note for students after ending of this placement. And of course, this also plays motivation role, because from one side, students are more motivated to if they know that also farmer or other representatives from practice give them note, and this is also related with our final note in our educational process. So this is very important. Also, if we're thinking about common assessment process between academic staff and industry representatives. And other thing, permanent representation of industry at the university to help select students into placement. So they should be involved in the development of new placement process. If we want to improve this process, we should permanent talking with representation of industry, of entrepreneurs, that they should also be a part of process of improving our placement, student placement things. Next time, industry representatives are listening to concerning the content of student placement. So what we should do during the placement, also not only from academic side, but also from practical side. And next two things. Practitioners are invited by university authorities to give lectures and lead workshops for students and academic staff. Why? Because in this case, we have stronger contact with practitioners, and after that we can share our experience, our problems between university and practitioners, and of course students and lecturers can also see real people that leading in our branch, and of course this is good for future choosing, for example, place of placement or for improving of student placement in our curricula. And university can more often organize study trips to interesting companies for students and academics in order to build long-term relationships and raise awareness of mutual benefits. So this is study visits are mostly not so long, for example, 1 day, but this is very good place and a very good time to catch the contacts, to build our relationships, and this is very good for future our cooperation. So at the end of my presentation, some general recommendation about how to should the placement be at agrarian studies. The achievement of the student placement objectives is possible if the appropriate conditions and opportunities to complete student placement are provided. It is about choosing the right business entities that can really be examples to follow to other people. They are leader in this industry, in this branch. As well, we should think about good supervisor of students placement who will help in achieving the internship goals. And they are specialists, they are experts, they are academic staff, but also they are involved in the placement process. Good practice one where students have the opportunity to learn about complex agriculture production process in economic, organizational, technical, technological, and environmental context. We should think about all these things because today we have a lot of different challenges than before in last decade, and in many times we have problem with climate change and, for example, lack of water and other things. So we don't only go to the technological way, but also we should thinking and doing it in such a way that will be related with sustainable development, and we thinking about economic, organizational, environmental, and social also aspects. Students should also be able to actively participate independently, so they should by themselves thinking about how important and how good time is student placement. And in teams, in the organization and performance of various works on our farm, agribusiness enterprises or institution from the agriculture environment. And last thing, the acquired skills should help find employment in the agri-food industry faster and facilitate the adoption of graduates to work in the real economy. If the student placement and other practical trainings, workshops, internships in program of study, if this is good, providing people who are graduates, they have higher level of especially practical skills and competences, and they know how to connect theory and practice. And this is the big advantage on the labor market, because they are better prepared to the work in a real economy. And such a scope of student placement should be also help prepare graduates for managing teams of employees and for independent running of a farm or enterprises in the future. So if we have good practical preparation, not only theoretical, we also be a better managers in the future, and we can make more good effects, or we make less problems or less losses in the future. So this is also very important, and this is related with our topic, like student placement at agrarian studies. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much for opportunity to be a part of your conference. This is all from my side. And if you need some more information, please find this in TOPAZ handbook, or please contact with me via email or telephone, or via our colleagues from Andijan or Samarkand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Stanislav, for your presentation. Bu ma'ruza oliy ta'lim muassasalarida, ayni qishloq xo'jaligi sohasidagi oliy ta'lim yo'nalishlarida talabalar amaliyotini tashkil qilish bo'yicha edi. Bu katta bir ish qilingan, ya'ni qo'llanma yaratilgan. Bu qo'llanma ingliz tilida yaratilib, o'zbek tiliga ham tarjima qilingan. Bu o'zbek tili tarjimasini shu bugungi kunning oxirigacha elektron versiyasini konferensiyaning veb saytiga qo'yamiz. Ya'ni bugun hozirgi aytilgan mavzuni kengaytirilgan, batafsil yoritilgan holda o'zbek tilida ham o'qib foydalanishingiz mumkin. Shuningdek, bu qo'llanma chop qilingan va Samarqand Veterinar meditsinasi instituti, Andijon qishloq xo'jaligi va agrotexnologiya instituti hamda Toshkent davlat Samarqand filiali kutubxonalarida ham mavjud. U yerdan ham olib foydalanishingiz mumkin bo'ladi. Stanislav, I just announced about Uzbek version of handbook and its availability. So thank you very much again. So next floor is given to Henry Matthews from Writtle University College, United Kingdom, on the topic COVID-19 after 6 months or more, implication and potential consequence for European vegetable and fruit supply chains. Keyingi mavzu uchun navbat Buyuk Britaniyaning Writtle University College'dan Henry Matthewsga beriladi. Bu COVID-19 pandemiyasining Yevropa sabzavot va meva yetishtirish va yetkazib berish tizimiga ta'siri bo'yicha bo'ladi. Henry Matthews bu ko'p yillar davomida O'zbekiston va Markaziy Osiyo qishloq xo'jalik sohasi bo'yicha ishlagan va Yevropada va dunyoda tan olingan ekspertlardan biri hisoblanadi. Please, Henry, if you are ready, floor is yours. Thank you very much. Mikrofon o'chir. Mikrofon o'chir. O'chiring.
good afternoon to colleagues and friends in Uzbekistan, and good morning to friends and colleagues in Europe. Can you see my screen? I'm just to check to see that I'm sharing my screen.
And Henry, please a little bit louder, or you make loud your microphone, and we cannot see now your screen. You can share screen as well.
Okay, is that better with the volume?
A little bit more, if possible.
Okay, so that's maximum volume now.
Yeah,
can you see my screen?
Ekran koyarsın. Ekran. No, not yet.
Okay.
Siz birinci bet götürtün. Görevik.
Okay, I'm having trouble with my screen. Okay, can you see my screen now, Farod?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
یا bu نرمه و بسیار بیشتر هم بیاور یخش تنن سلامت خدا بهش بیام سمقن که بالش گرفته.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me. I'm having a little bit of interference in my headphones, but I'll carry on. So, as I say, good afternoon to everybody. My name's Henry Matthews. I'm a senior lecturer at Writtle University College in the UK. Within the Topaz project, we were responsible for modern teaching methods, which my colleague Nikki will share with you later on this morning or this afternoon. I've been teaching at Writtle for some time. I am a former farmer, so I farmed for 25 years, and as such, I started my career in farming thinking that all that was necessary for me to do was to produce as much as possible, and not being too concerned with what happened beyond the farm gate once I sold it. But I soon realized that actually understanding what the next person in the supply chain wanted, and ultimately what the customer wanted, was one of the keys to the profitability of my business. And since then, and since coming to Writtle, I've looked a lot at supply chains and value chains and done quite a lot of work in this area. And in fact, at the moment, I'm working on a project in Kyrgyzstan, which is obviously just across the border from you, on value chains, particularly in organic products. So looking at this as a subject area has meant that key areas of agriculture, which perhaps aren't that recognized or that looked at, particularly by farmers, is something which needs a lot of attention, and as an industry we need to do so. So when COVID hit us a year ago, the impact on supply chains, particularly in Europe, was quite strong. So what I want to do is just talk a little bit about pandemic in Europe, but probably not very long on that. Look at how the supply chains are structured. What was the impact of COVID? How have the supply chains changed, and what are the conclusions? And I think, even though I know your food system and your agriculture system is very different in Uzbekistan and in others of our partner countries, some of the lessons I think are there for everybody to pick up on. So this is the timeline of the arrival of the coronavirus in Europe. I won't read that out because you can see it for yourselves. And in the UK this week, we've marked the first anniversary of our first lockdown, when all of the businesses that were shut down, the key businesses were shut down except the vital ones, and that is something that has been shared by friends and colleagues across the world. So we're looking at something which is a year old now, and I actually looked at this and did this research after 6 months. Just where are we in terms of Europe and our fruit production and vegetable production? Well, you can see there's some key countries there: Italy, Spain, France, and our Polish colleagues as well will be well aware of this, that they are also a big producer. But of course, there is a big flow of vegetables and fruit across Europe. In the UK, for example, we only produce less than 20% of our own fruit and less than 60% of our own vegetables. And this is the shortfall is made up predominantly by those countries you can see on the slide there, Spain and Italy particularly. Our food systems and our commodities and products that come to consumers from farms actually come through supermarkets. And what has happened over the course of 25, 30 years is that supermarkets have provided cheap food, and their objectives really is to create market share for themselves, to create profitability and shareholder value. And how have they done this? Just in time. Okay, so that has an implication for supply chains in that there are no stocks. So the food arrives in the supermarket within time for the consumers to pick it straight off the shelf. There's no storage. It comes from Spain or Italy. It arrives at one of our ports and arrives at the supermarket just in time for the consumer to pick it up. So very short shelf lives and very little stock held anywhere. But we need reliable and constant supplies. Consumers in Europe are very demanding in terms of wanting the availability of product all the year round. They have to react quickly. So changes in the weather, for example, mean that the certain demand for certain products means they have to source those quickly. But quality is key. And even supermarkets that are thought to be targeting less affluent consumers are actually still supplying a consistently good product. And this requires planning. So what happened when the lockdown started and the national restrictions were in place was actually the demand for fruit and vegetables rose. So you can see there in Spain, Italy, and the Netherlands, it was by 40%. For Germany, it was up to 100%. So the picture you see on the screen there was common across supermarkets across Europe, and this is one from the UK, where people started to panic. And there were long queues outside supermarkets to be able to buy the food, and particularly the fruit and vegetables that they wanted. But these were the areas that were affected, and these had implications in the agricultural sector. So food service, online sales, local shopping, consumer choices, and labour. Food service is a big market for fruit and vegetables in Europe. And by food service, we mean restaurants, cafes, schools, hospitals. So of 80 million tonnes of fruit and vegetables produced in the EU, 25 million is consumed outside the home. So the shutdown of cafes and restaurants and schools meant that this fruit and vegetable supply chain was cut. So this caused a build-up of supplies in the food system as the demand shifted away from the food service sector to people wanting to buy in the supermarket or in local shops. So companies had to adapt quickly, and companies have adapted quickly. And in fact, in the first 6 months of the virus in the UK, there were more applications for starting up new firms than there were in the equivalent 6 months a year previously. So this was an opportunity for some businesses and for some farm businesses. We have a student here whose family supplies potatoes to fish and chip shops, which I'm sure you know is a big part of British culture. And their entire stock was due to go to restaurants. So being quite enterprising, they started a home delivery service. So they were taking bags of potatoes to local people and delivering to the doorstep. Another this is a bigger company, Reynolds, which is a home delivery service based in North London. They did exactly the same. They provide huge quantities of fruit and vegetables into the restaurant and the catering trade, and they set up their own home delivery business. So they went from Reynolds, the more than just a greengrocer, to Solstice Home Deliveries. So this was an opportunity. Online sales rocketed. So those retailers that had a online facility, an online service, benefited enormously. So of 200 fresh produce retailers in Germany, 80% posted an increase in their sales online. In the UK, we have Ocado, which was valued at £13 billion, and Marks and Spencer, another food retailer, paid $832 million to have their products distributed by Ocado. And if distribution and warehousing is something that interests you, and it probably should, being in the agriculture industry, if you go online and look at Ocado, they have a really high level of technology involved in their automatic robotic selecting of products for customers, which is based on the technology that is used in air traffic control. So you have these robots that whiz around a huge warehouse picking the orders the customers have made for online delivery. People started shopping locally. People didn't want to join a queue, as you saw in the previous slide. So small stores, so what we call a convenience store, which is one that is local, maybe on a street corner, their sales went up 40% during 2020 in the UK. And farm shops, and this is where there were opportunities for farmers who were able to take advantage of this opportunity. The week before the lockdown last year, I took a group of students to a farm shop, not too far from Brittle here. They were taking in £1,200 a week. In the first week of lockdown, they were taking in £8,000 a week. So people started to think, I don't need to go to a supermarket, I can buy my food locally. And that has an opportunity again for farmers. And we also have what's called a veg box scheme. And this is where you order a box from a farmer or a group of farmers more commonly. You say, I want a vegetable box. You don't know what's in the box. You get whatever they have, what is seasonal, and they will deliver that to your door. And they've seen colossal increase in sales. Again, an opportunity for farmers. Consumer behavior has changed. As I've already said, the supermarket is still used, but it's more consumers going in for one shop a week. So they're only visiting the supermarket on one occasion. And people, because they've been at home, they've not been at work, or they've been working at home, are spending more time preparing food. So there is a demand for ingredients, there's demand for basic products rather than the manufactured and processed products that have become common in supermarkets and common in people's shopping baskets. People have started to look for healthy choices. And again, this has implications at the farm level. So people are looking for the health qualities of fruit and vegetables because, as I'm sure you know, many of the more severe cases of COVID have affected people with underlying health issues, and particularly in the UK, where we have high levels of obesity, that has been an underlying cause of severe problems that people have had with the disease. So there's more of an interest in health and nutrition. Organic and health food shops have had increased sales. And some of the vegetable box schemes I've mentioned already are organic. And so in France, for example, organic food shop sales are up 40%. And we have this thing called the health halo. So by buying an organic or a product directly from the farm, you have this benefit which is associated with these products, which is healthy. Food waste is a big issue across huge number of supply chains, and that's really all the way from the field through to the fork. In developed countries such as Western Europe, our problem is mainly at the consumer level. But looking at sort of African countries, we're looking at loss at the just post-harvest and transport stage. But waste and loss is a big issue, and although initially there was quite a lot of waste as consumers stockpiled and then realized they didn't need all the products they bought in a panic, but actually what has happened during the course of the period after this initial rush to fill shelves and to fill freezers and fridges with food is people have planned better. And because they've had more time at home, leftovers have been used to create other dishes. So you've had a more sort of sustainable approach to food preparation. And there was a survey here in the UK that found that 48% were throwing less food away and 51% are planning their meals more carefully. So what I've looked so far is the demand side of the pandemic, but there are issues on the labour side as well. So the supply of labour already under what was necessary across Europe, and across the world, whether it's Mexicans picking strawberries in Canada or Ukrainians picking apples in Poland, there is a flow of labour that goes across national boundaries to pick the fruit or pick the vegetables that are required in other markets. Moroccans and North Africans in Spain is another one picking tomatoes. But obviously that with the borders closed, that was an issue, and movement was restricted. If veg and fruit chains rely on migrant labour, I've said that already. So there have been a few campaigns in France. There was a campaign to encourage local people. Many of the people that have been laid off because of the pandemic were encouraged to apply. So we've had one in the UK, which is the picture there, Pick for Britain. There was also one in France, as you can say there, Des bras pour ton assiette, which I think means arms for your plate. So what will change, and just what will be the impact of this? So just looking at each of these areas, I think there'll be difference in food service, supermarket offer, consumer choices, relationships along supply chains and labour. And I think these will have consequences in Europe, but as I say, I think there are trends here that you could pick out that might be important in your countries. So the first thing is that many businesses won't survive. We have news of closures and of food service businesses every week here in the UK. A major retailer has announced this week they're shutting more shops. I think many of the pubs will not survive. But what has happened is that the delivery part of pubs, restaurants, those that have sort of moved into a delivery service are actually doing really well. And you've got two delivery companies here, Deliveroo and Just Eat, have got rapid expansion. So these are companies which will deliver prepared food and meals to your door, and they've had a rapid increase in business. And pubs offering takeaways, so restaurants and pubs that offer takeaways. And as I said before, this is an opportunity, and farms are getting in on this as well, offering pre-prepared food to customers, to local customers. Supermarkets are going to change, or they have changed. The ones with an online facility have done particularly well, with 25% year-on-year increases in orders. Healthy storable products. I think there is a strong argument for looking at organic production, or certainly looking at going into a scheme whereby your crops are assured. And there'll be less theatre. So people going into supermarkets are just going to go in there, get their food, and leave. So there's less of a requirement for the promotions and marketing in store. So there are some issues with consumer choices. There's no doubt that as unemployment creeps up, particularly in West Europe, that this will reduce spending power. But the question then is that spending power going to be reflected in what people are prepared to pay for food? But the argument is not. Across Europe, we spend a very small portion of our income on food. In the UK, it's somewhere around 10%. So there is, as consumers and customers think about health, and they prioritise what they what they spend their money on, then healthy food is sure to be one of those things. And the health halo I mentioned before is bound to have an impact on consumer choice. Supply chain relationships. Again, this is an opportunity for farmers to develop shorter chains, to take advantage of the contact they're having with their customers and their consumers, to make sure that they can provide with what they want. And that shorter supply chain, I think, is something that we're going to see a lot more of. I think the UK is an extreme example of this, and I think people choosing seasonal food rather than having the demand for the same food all the year round. And I know my European friends have definite seasons. You know, if you're in Germany or the Netherlands, when the asparagus season starts, for example, there's big excitement around that. And I think certainly in this country we've lost that. But by developing the relationship with your customers, your clients, you're able to provide them with what they want, but also educate them a little bit about farming, and the disconnect between urban and rural, I think, can be repaired. And the other thing is, if you are supplying something to your customers, what else could you provide? You know, what other services could you provide? Okay, so delivery. Could you add value in some way through processing? So the interest that consumers are having in food and where it's from, I think, is going to feed back into what farmers do and their opportunities for income earning. Labour, automation and digitalisation. As I say, the shortage of labour on farms to carry out the picking and the harvesting, it's an issue across many countries, as I said previously. And there is some thought that automation, robots will replace people. But I attended a webinar last night with a leading strawberry grower in the UK, and he was saying that is at least 10 years away. So we are going to need labour on farms in the traditional way. And even if we do get to the stage where we are putting more automation onto farms, they still need people to guide the machines, set the machines, and maintain the machines. And one thing that will need to be improved is the working and living conditions for those people that are travelling across continents to work on farms. And I think we're going to have to pay them more as well. And I think quite rightly so, because there's a lot of evidence of exploitation of migrant labour. And I've seen evidence of that in Spain, in Almeria, but it's also, I've seen evidence of it here in the UK, in Lincolnshire. So that, I think, is a priority from a farm point of view and a farm business point of view. And of course, that will be reflected down the supply chain in terms of costs. And I think certainly in Europe, we should be paying far more for our food, and to be looking at quality and look for the assurance that what's happening on farms is sustainable, but also equitable for those people working there. And I think as consumers, we should be making sure that we are buying products that have that assurance attached to them. Okay, so just in conclusion, the European fruit and vegetable supply chain provides economic opportunities, employment, but also a supply of healthy, safe and nutritious food. And despite any political issues, which I've avoided discussing because that does have an impact, or might have an impact on this, on the supply chain, despite that, it will continue. And I can't see the UK producing too much more in the way of fruit and vegetables. It will try and produce more, but the advantage is that our friends in Spain, France, Italy have in terms of being able to produce nutritious and safe food at an affordable price, I think will continue, and I think we will continue to import. But that supply chain, that value chain needs to function smoothly, despite these slight changes and the demand for local. The chain did prove to be resilient. We've had a few issues in the UK, and there've been a few issues across borders with disruptions and blockages, and some cracks and flaws have been exposed. And there will be structural changes, so there will be more online ordering. There will be more local purchasing, but there could lead to a new food service model. As I say, we will continue to import, but also there is this system that can be produced on farms that's complementary with online delivery and people buying local healthy products and understanding where their food comes from. And particularly important is a new approach to the employment of migrant workers. So thank you very much for listening. As I say, this is about European supply chains, but I think there are some issues there which are transferable across other food systems. And thank you very much for listening.
Dear Heather, thank you very much for your presentation. So very actual and topic is very problematic here in Uzbekistan too. So, we have 2 breaks on agenda. So if you don't, our colleagues don't mind, so we will join them into 1 break. So let me announce a break till 3 o'clock. So our dear participants on Zoom may stay online, do not interrupt their connection. Hurmatli qatnashchilar, bizda kun tartibida 2 ta tanaffus bor edi. Shu ikkasini bitta qilib, hozir soat 3 gacha tanaffus e'lon qilishga ruxsat bersalaringiz, Zoomda qatnashayotganlar Zoom aloqasini uzmasdan shunday qoldirishlaringizni so'rardik. Yana qaytadan ulanishga vaqt ketmasligi uchun soat 3 dan davom etamiz. Undan keyin tanaffusdan keyin ertangi bo'ladigan bugungi bilan ertangi 2 ta prezentatsiyalar almashgan. Komiljon Komilovni prezentatsiyasi ertaga qoldirilib, bugun angliyalik hamkasb Niki van Wigelning prezentatsiyasi bo'ladi. Undan keyin Shavkat Hasanovni o'sha hozirgi bundan oldingi bo'lgan prezentatsiyaga hamohang bo'lgan O'zbekiston misolidagi prezentatsiyasi bo'ladi. So after break, so we will change on schedule. So Rector Komilov asked for to move for tomorrow, and Niki van Wiegel from Little University College is ready to replace him. So right after break, so floor will be given to Niki, and then Dr. Shavkat Hasanov will follow with topic aligned with presentation of Henry. So we announce break till 3 o'clock.
Thank you very much.
Dominic Kelly. Dominic Kelly.
Qo'shildim. Assalomu alaykum, yana bir marta hurmatli ishtirokchilar. Ruxsat bersalaringiz tanaffusdan so'ng konferensiya ishini davom ettirsak. So good morning or good afternoon, dear participants. Let us continue work of our conference as usual. After break, we have lesser people, but I think there are more valuable people who are remaining. But we still have around 70 more participants on Zoom too. So we thank Nicky Van Wiegel from Whitley University College for his readiness to replace Kamaljan Kamilov, rector of Andijan. So Dr. Van Wiegel's presentation on student-centered learning, teaching, and assessment. Keyingi so'z navbati Angliyaning, Buyuk Britaniyaning Whittle College'dan Nicky Van Wiegel, u talabalarga yo'naltirilgan ta'lim va baholash bo'yicha beradi. Shu sohada yetakchi ekspert hisoblanadi. Please, Nicky, floor is yours. You may share your screen or presentation. Good.
Okay, now, thank you. Hopefully everyone can hear me now. Thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity to present today. My presentation today is part of the output of the Topaz project that's been taking place for quite a while now. And we'll be specifically looking at developing graduates for what we consider an innovative and modern agricultural sector. So what do we need to do? Where do we need to look at to get our graduates ready for the sector that we all hold dearly? So we're going to do things in a bit of an order today. We're going to have a bit of the theoretical background as to why we've made certain decisions, why we have certain practices, and then we're going to finish off today with some examples of how these things have been applied in some of the partner universities that are part of the Topaz project, and specifically how some of these approaches have also proven to be what we call COVID-proof. We've managed to get them in such a flexible way that we can use them regardless of environment and where we are. Okay, so first and foremost, I think we can all agree that the range of technical knowledge that our graduates will need when they leave our institutions and get ready for employment, that the range of skills they need is incredibly broad. Okay, so we want graduates to be able to work in the field. We want them to be able to work with livestock. We want them to be able to work with machinery, and they need mechanical skills. We want high-level digital skills. And in some cases, in a lot of cases, we want them to have some sort of laboratory type skills or very fine horticultural skills as well. And this is all brilliant because our industry requires our students to have an understanding and knowledge about all these things. Okay, but there is a bit of a drawback there, which we'll see in a second. So context-wise, traditionally, and where work package 2 for Topaz about student-centered teaching, learning, and assessment came from, is that traditionally universities focus on the academic approach, academics imparting technical information, technical knowledge to students, and we expect our students to passively absorb that information. However, the problem with this is that, as we all know, agriculture is a very quickly changing industry. We have new innovation coming out on a regular, yearly, monthly basis, which means that any bit of information and knowledge that students have can quite quickly become outdated because new technology and innovative practices are introduced and replace other practices. So in order to make sure that we have graduates that are employable and graduates that remain employable, we need to prepare graduates for that situation. We need to not just give them a baseline understanding, but we also need to prepare them for a field that will be continuously evolving. And for that, they need a wide range of skills, competencies, and understanding. And that's what this work package and this presentation will be focusing on. So some of the skills and competencies that we want to see in our students is that we want them to be able to communicate. We want to be able to be flexible. We want to be able to plan and organize and build relationships with people. But all of these things, so these competencies are behaviors, okay? And they are behaviors that are independent from the subject that they're studying. So these competencies are the same for students that graduate from agricultural courses, the students that graduate from veterinary courses, from students that graduate from, I don't know, so architectural courses. We all want them to have these competencies rather than just being able to parrot the knowledge that we've given them. They need these things as well in order to survive in a very quickly developing agricultural industry. Okay, so in the traditional model, what we see in education is that we have content delivery by an expert. In other words, a lecturer, a professor that stands at the front of the classroom, and we talk at our students, and we have them sitting there passively taking notes and listening to what we have to say. We expect students that when they leave our classroom, they go and read and consolidate their knowledge in their own time. We don't worry about that too much. We set them tasks that that test their learning, mostly through essays, because that's what we're used to as academics. And we teach so that we prepare our students for exams. And those exams test memory, they test factual recall. And therefore our assessment strategy allows surface learning to be enough for passing the course. Okay, surface learning being factual recall without deeper understanding. Yeah. What we need to see for students to survive in an ever-changing, quickly changing agricultural context is we want students to be accountable for their own learning. Okay, we want students to take that responsibility. We want to have practices that put the students at the center of developing those competencies rather than just gathering facts and rather than just being able to reproduce factual knowledge, because factual knowledge gets outdated really quickly. We want to shift from just teaching to learning and to measuring that learning. So this is a very uncomfortable thing at start as a lecturer or as a professor, is that we no longer are the most important person in the room. Our students are, okay? We need to understand how students learn and what drives them. And we need to change what counts as knowledge. And more importantly, we need to change who can create knowledge. It is no longer just the expert standing in front of the room that has the knowledge, creates the knowledge and passes it on. Students can create knowledge of their own whilst they are learning. Okay? And we need to focus on getting students to develop skills, and we need to focus on employability. Okay? Employability being the concept of getting students ready for employment after graduation. What are the skills they need to land that first job and to do it properly? Okay, this obviously relies on an availability of learning resources for content delivery. So we need digital resources, we need the internet, we need virtual learning environments, etc. But a lot of it is incredibly flexible and adaptable. Okay. So for example, as new approaches, we look at students as the focus of the learning experience. It's not the lecturer, it's the student who is important. Because quite frankly, we've been there, we know our stuff. We need to get the students ready as the future of our field. They are important. Yeah. And this requires that we assess for learning rather than assess of learning. Okay. Now, assessment of learning is testing their factual recall. Assessment for learning is the fact that the assessment that the students are doing actually teaches them something, rather than just test how well they can remember a certain fact on a given day under exam conditions. Yeah. So this concept of assessment for learning means that the assessment is an integral part of student-centered teaching and student-centered delivery. we work with learning outcomes. Okay, we call this constructive alignment, but it means that the main focus of a course is a learning outcome. A learning outcome being, what do you want students to be able to do once they've graduated from your course? So a student that walks out the door at the end of their course, what do they need to be able to do? Now that needs to be informed by industry. This is what industry buys in to your courses. Get your industry partners to help you and get them to tell you what they want that graduate to be able to do. Once you know what your graduate should be able to do, you can then figure out how are you going to assess that they've met that outcome. Okay, so outcome first, assessment second, content third. It is no longer just about the content of the course. It is no longer just about factual knowledge and understanding. We want the students to get to a point. How do they get there? And how do we know that they've gotten to that point? Okay. For that constructive alignment, we rely on what we call a theoretical concept we call Bloom's taxonomy. And Bloom's taxonomy is this concept where as you go higher in, and this pyramid shape usually works quite well, as you go higher in this pyramid shape, the competencies get more complicated. So at the bottom of this pyramid, we see knowledge, we see factual knowledge. Whereas at the top of it, we see evaluation. We want students to be able to evaluate and synthesize their understanding. We want them to create new knowledge. Whereas at the bottom, we just want them to recall knowledge. Okay. Now, these bottom two rungs of a ladder, so comprehension and knowledge, is something that students can do independently. They don't need us for that. Okay. We don't need to stand in front of a group of students and tell them facts. They can read that from a book. Okay. What we want students to do is, once they've acquired that baseline understanding, we want them to be able to apply that understanding. We want to be able to analyze the factual knowledge. We want to be able to synthesize and create new knowledge and evaluate that process. And this is what they need our help with. Yeah, this is why they need guiding. So some examples of changes to a student-centered learning environment is, for example, a flipped classroom and collaborative learning, where students learn together and where students learn with us rather than from us. Okay, we use problem-based learning approaches. We use real-life industry problems to get students to learn and demonstrate skill development. We use research. Okay, we're academic institutions. We do research. Why not use that research for learning opportunities and as a learning opportunity? Okay, and very importantly, we use reflective learning and self-evaluation. Okay, because students graduate, but they will not stop learning after that. There is now an expectation that throughout their career, students are constantly learning and developing themselves. And part of that professional and personal development is looking back at your current understanding and looking at where you need to be, what you need to be, and how you are going through that learning journey for the rest of your career. Okay, so reflective learning is important. It's important for students to be able to identify where they have gaps in their knowledge and how they need to close those gaps. So we quite literally, well, not physically, but in theoretical understandings, we flip our classroom. We move from a traditional classroom where a teacher or a lecturer stands in front of students and delivers a 1 or 2 or 3 hour lecture, and then students go home and then they read more and then they ask questions the next opportunity. We switch from that model to, we get students to work in groups and we give them the information they need beforehand, whether that be a recorded lecture or whether that be a couple of academic papers they need to read or technical information they need to digest in order to do a task. They then come into your classroom and in groups, they work on an activity. And it's that activity that stimulates understanding, development, collaboration, teamwork, and all these skills that we want them to develop. And then they go away and evaluate what's happened and how they got to that understanding. Okay. interactive lectures are equally important. So if you do deliver a lecture, because sometimes lectures are just appropriate, if you do deliver lectures, make them interactive, okay? Interactive lectures allow students to have space during a lecture for thinking, for framing questions, for trying to make sense of what they've just been told. And what we know is that after about 15, 20 minutes of being in a lecture, students lose their attention. They lose their attention span, their performance goes down. This conference is a good example of it. Yeah, I mean, if you sit through a 1 hour presentation, the first 20 minutes is fine. And then after that, you start to drift. Okay, we might be professors and we might be experts, but as far as that's concerned, we're no different from our students. What we also see is that if this interactive lecture has a collaborative element where students who are stuck, who don't quite have an understanding of a particular concept they're just being talked about, can talk to other students, and that other students who are on the ball and who do have the understanding of what we've just told them, can stretch their understanding by helping the ones that are not quite there yet during a lecture. Okay? It allows us to test understanding, to recapture that attentive moment. And what we find is that rather than teaching for 2 hours straight, if we teach for 20 minutes with a short gap, 20 minutes, short gap, 20 minutes, short gap, and so forward, that is a lot more effective. Those short gaps allow students that thinking space. They allow students to come up with questions and have a quick chat amongst each other. Like, well, I wasn't quite sure about that. How do I need to work on this? Okay. And one of the key elements that makes this happen is, for example, this concept of online quizzes. And it doesn't necessarily need to be online, but the idea is that where in our little break, so you talk for, say, 15, 20 minutes, and then you give students a little problem. You ask them a question, and you say, look, answer these couple of questions. Get your phone out and answer these questions, or on a piece of paper, answer these 3 questions that I've now put on the screen, and then go and talk to your neighbor next to you and see if you've got the same answer. And if not, try and figure out why not. This has 2 main benefits. A, you break up the cycle of I am talking at you, and therefore I recapture their attention. Second, I get to test their understanding then and there in my lecture. And if during that understanding testing, it comes out that, do you know what, the majority of students actually did not make any sense of what I've just talked to them, then you know there's no point continuing the lecture until they understand what I'm saying. So let's quickly recap where we were, figure out what the problem is, re-explain it, and then move on. So there's multiple benefits to these little quizzes that you can do or questions that you can ask students. The benefit of these online quizzes is that students are normally quite reluctant to say they don't understand something because they don't want to look stupid compared to their friends. These quizzes are anonymous. Yeah. But the main element of this skills development is what we work on as problem-based learning. So problem-based learning has been around for a while. It began in the 60s. And the classic definition of this is learning that and results from the process of working towards understanding. So it's learning that you achieve because students are actively working on something, and because they're actively working on something, they develop an understanding of whatever they're working on. Okay, we tend to put students in groups for this. The thing that's key for this is problem design. Okay, we can't just give students something, put our hands up and say, right, that's it, I'm off, I'll see you next week. We need to coach this carefully if we want it to be effective. So we need to have a carefully designed problem. Okay. So in practice, this looks like something along the lines of, as a lecturer, professor, tutor, whatever you want to call yourself, you give a prompt. You give something complex that if students investigate this complex thing fully, then they will need to have threshold concepts. They will need to have that base level understanding to be able to make sense of that project. But equally, it's important that there is no necessarily right or wrong answer or only one particular way to approach it. Because what you'll find is that if you give a group of 4 groups of 5 students the same problem, there's a good chance that those 4 groups solve that problem in 4 different ways. There is not necessarily only one way to approach a certain problem and come up with a solution. And you'll also find that out of those 4 groups, there might well be 3 or 4 different answers. There might not be one right answer. Okay? And that's important because it's about the process and the journey rather than the final answer, because throughout developing their answers, students are learning. Okay? Generally, we find that students work in groups. And this problem-based learning approach is quite flexible. It can be one teaching session. It could also be a whole module. Yeah. So just to give you an example, a couple of years ago, I was involved with a project with the Society for the Protection of Animals in the Netherlands, where they came to us with a problem and said, look, we've got this problem with rabbit rescue centers and different standards of animal husbandry. We want you to fix it, and we want you to develop a policy for us as a national charity. So that was given to a group of 5 students, and we had 6 months to investigate the problem, to investigate the different approaches that the different rescues and shelters used, to then bring that all together, and then to develop a new policy for the national charity, which was then to be applied in practice and adopted by the charity. Now, that's a real world problem. It's a relevant problem for students, and this was the assessment for a whole module. There were a few theory lectures, but they weren't content. Okay? It was a theory lecture on how do you develop policy rather than animal husbandry. It was a theory lecture on how do you write policy reports rather than how do you design a rabbit enclosure. Okay? The subject level understanding, the animal husbandry understanding, that sort of stuff was developed by students through working through this process and by referring to the literature and by talking to experts. And the students then wrote the policy. And in the end, it was adopted by the Dutch National Charity and is now written into law. The job of the tutor was not there to teach the students. It was there to be a coach, check on progress, make sure they stayed on task, provide guidance if they had questions, facilitate meetings between students, that sort of stuff, but not delivery of subject matter. That was done by students themselves. Okay? So what we find is that for a problem-based learning approach, good quality problems are those that are engaging and motivating to students. You want the students to be interested in it. You want them to be authentic and real world, whether that is a simulated problem that you've made up with real world data, or whether they are actually problems originating from industry partners that you may have, doesn't matter. We want them to be authentic, real world, and we want them to be able to multiple IDs, and we want them to be able to sustain discussion. There needs to be various dimensions for physical, cognitive, social, and ethical elements to be involved, because we want students to develop this broad understanding of the topic. But mostly we want to challenge students to achieve learning outcomes. We want them to work on problems, demonstrate that they understand threshold concepts, and we want them to be able to work on their graduate attributes, their competencies. We want them to be able to do teamwork, thinking, creative problem solving, all those kind of things. Okay, and prompts-wise, it could be any of these things. It could be an article, it could be an experience, it could be a video, it could be a field walk, it could be an expert lecture, it could be a problem from industry. It can be a range of things. It doesn't matter as long as it's chosen carefully. Okay. Now, to finish off then, some examples of how this has been implemented in some of the partner institutions. So one of the approaches that we worked on and was implemented in this case, if I'm not mistaken, this is Anau in Armenia, is where we use research posters as an assessment for students. So we developed some sessions on how to implement research into module, into teaching and learning and assessment. And these are students who have produced a poster, and the poster is part of the assessment. Now you can apply this across your course. If you have first-year students, you let them create a poster based on an existing research paper. If you have year 3 or final year students, you let them do their own research and create a poster based on that research. But it's in the creating of the poster that we force students to do the understanding elements. Okay. Now, we found out over the past, say, 12 months that this is incredibly flexible. Pre-COVID, we used to do actual poster sessions by slapping paper posters on the wall and do these group sessions. So these photos are all taken pre-COVID. during COVID, and in 2 weeks' time at RITL, we now do these poster sessions online, the similar way that this conference works. Okay, we have online live presentations where a student put their poster on the screen and they talk it through, and we have multiple poster streams happening at the same time. Now, if live is a problem, you get students to pre-record a video and send that in. So it doesn't even have to be live. What is important is that regardless of how this is delivered, students will develop transferable skills. They will develop their competencies as well as their technical understanding and knowledge. Okay. We've used industry case studies in a problem-based learning approach, where we take case studies coming from industry, we give them to students, say, right, this is the problem. Now, what do we need to do to solve this problem? How do we get there? You put students in groups, you let them work on this problem. Because this originates from industry, we know that the data is relevant, we know it's up to date, but it also means that we can get industry representatives involved in the assessment of our students. Okay, so it's a useful thing to get students to present to, once they've solved their problem and they've come up with a solution, get them to present that solution to an industry panel. Not just a group of academics who focus on the academic aspects, but get them to talk to industry experts as well and say, right, so academically, you're absolutely brilliant, but have you thought of this, 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 and this in practice? Yeah. We have got institutions to use online and mobile quizzes to check for understanding. Some of the quizzes use a bit of a gamification approach, so there's a game element to it, so there's some reward for students when they complete the quizzes. They're there to maintain interest, but equally there are various alternatives. If the online technology is not working for you because the infrastructure might not be there, you can do the offline equivalent. I've in the past, when internet was not really this online quizzes thing wasn't a problem, I told students that if they had something they were struggling with, to write it on a piece of paper, scrunch it up into a ball, and try and throw it at my head in front of the lecture theatre. So I had about 30 to 40 students throwing a paper ball at me, trying to hit me. That was the game. But the whole point of it was, I then sent them out of the room for 10 minutes to go for a walk and go to the toilet and get a drink, all that sort of stuff. And in those 10 minutes, I opened those balls and just looked at what are the main problems that students are still struggling with. They came back and we were like, right, so you have just told me that you are still struggling with these concepts. Let's go back over it. It is the offline version of an online quiz. And trust me, students are really, really happy to try and throw a piece of paper at you if they get the chance. Right. And equally, what we find to introduce some of that reflective element is that we started using portfolios, because portfolios allow for a collection of different types of assessment in a coherent, flowing manner. So you can put different bits of writing in there, you can put some reflective writing in there, you can put some factual understanding in there, but they're flexible. They can be online, they can be offline, it can be a blend of. Okay. I'm running over time a little bit, so I'm not going to go through this example, but this presentation is available online. So if you want to look at what one of these portfolios can look like, if you do it purely online, there is an example there. Okay. So to conclude, we've seen that throughout Topaz, we've managed to incorporate a number of these elements of student-centered teaching, learning, and assessment in the partner universities, and the feedback from students has been really good. The students that came to RITL as part of Topaz all had to do a portfolio, and I've read all these portfolios and they've been very enthusiastic about these elements, and they feel better prepared for jobs and roles in industry after graduating, and that's what matters. Our students are the ones that are the future of our field. We need to prepare them to be successful in that future. Thank you very much. If anyone has any questions later down the line, my email address is there. Feel free to email me. And if you want to relook at this presentation, it's all available online for free. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Nikki, for your valuable presentation. So I'll announce in Uzbek availability of your presentation and contribution on handbook. Hurmatli qatnashchilar, Nikki van Wigelning prezentatsiyasi bu o'qitish usullari, ta'lim berish usullari haqida edi. buning batafsil tahliliy ma'lumotlar ya'ni o'sha loyiha doirasida chop qilingan uslubiy qo'llanmada berilgan bo'lib, buning ikkinchi bobida berilgan bo'lib, yuqorida o'zbek tilida buni konferensiyani tugagandan keyin konferensiya o'sha maqolalar bilan birgalikda o'sha joyga, demak, erkin holda yuklab olish uchun qo'yiladi. Uslubiy qo'llanma bemalol olib dars paytida foydalanishingiz mumkin. Shuningdek, savollar bo'ladigan bo'lsa, konferensiyani bugun kunning oxirida yoki o'zini kontakt ma'lumotlarini ham berdi, bevosita o'ziga chiqib so'rashingiz mumkin. Thank you very much, Nikki. I just announced what you said about questions in Uzbek, and as I said, handbook will be published on conference webpage too, right after conference. So next presentation, so last one for today is from Dr. Professor Shavkat Hasanov, Director of Samarkand branch of Tashkent State Agrarian University, on agro-food primary production and export development in Uzbekistan, which is aligned with what presented Henry Matthews from Retail. So please, Shavkat, floor is yours.
Assalomu alaykum, hurmatli konferensiya ishtirokchilari, hurmatli ustozlar, hamkasblar, kollegalar. Menga berilgan imkoniyatdan foydalanib, hammalaringizni kirib kelgan Navro'za ayyom bayrami bilan chin qalbimdan tabriklayman. Ishlarga, o'qishlarga omad, ilmiy ishlarga muvaffaqiyat. Mana bu konferensiyani uyushtirgan barcha tashkilotchilarga o'z nomimdan, shu bilan birgalikda Toshkent davlat yangi tashkil bo'lgan Toshkent davlat agrar universiteti Samarqand filiali jamoasi nomidan tabriklayman, sizlarga minnatdorchilik bildiraman. Yana bir narsani aytib o'tish kerakki, bu hozirgi men taqdimot qilmoqchi bo'lgan prezentatsiya, taqdimot bu Topaz loyihasida emas, demak, bu ko'proq O'zbekistonning qishloq xo'jaligi hozirgi pandemiyadan keyingi holatdagi ayrim islohotlar bo'yicha bo'ladi. Shuning uchun demak, ham qisqaroq qilishga harakat qilaman. Kunning oxirida hamma charchaganligini ko'rib turibmiz. Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I think you are not tired end of this conference day. I'm Shavkat Hasanov. I'm representing Samarkand branch of Tashkent State Agrarian University. Although all team members and all my friends, colleagues is sitting there in the Samarkand Institute of Veterinary Medicine and Samarkand branch of Tashkent State University of Economics. I'm still partially engaged in this institution, in both institutions, but my job is recently I shifted here, Samarkand branch of Tashkent State Agrarian University. Today, I would like to present you, it's not my job or scientific work have done on the framework of Topaz project. It's like desk research and about this policy of agricultural policy after COVID-19 or still is ongoing policies. Thank you very much. I would like to share my screen. So I think you will following me. Ko'rinyaptimi? Admin kechirasiz. Hamma ko'rinyaptimi? Kechirasizlar. Okay. So my presentation is desk research and about primary agriculture, food processing, agri-food export potential in Uzbekistan. And as I mentioned that I just moved to another institution, I'm a director of Samarkand branch of Tashkent State Agrarian University. I know the Topaz project. I know this all my colleagues and sitting there and from Germany and then Poland and Romania and Ukraine as well. We meet each other on the framework of the Topaz project. However, today I would like to introduce, to present to you end of this day of the conference about agriculture of Uzbekistan and export potential of agriculture products. So here is given total recent data of and about agriculture of Uzbekistan. As you know, Uzbekistan agriculture is share of agriculture in GDP is 29%, but employability is higher, still higher in which given this of the state is the data of the state of Statistics Department of Uzbekistan. Exports, we have huge potential of exports, but still our export is less than 10%. And here is given, we have, although is producing 21 million tons of fruit and vegetables annually. However, it's 1.5 million only exporting to other countries. And these countries, mostly the Kazakhstan, Russia, and Kyrgyzstan is nearby, nearest our neighbors. Therefore, there is huge potential to produce and to develop this food industry in Uzbekistan. So, as you know, it's agriculture Uzbekistan. If you look to the history of agriculture development of the country, mainly it's recognize the cotton and wheat production after this independence of the country. Country's agriculture mostly oriented to produce such two crops. And first one is self-sufficiency, to provide self-sufficiency. Uzbekistan is started to grow wheat and then to earn foreign currency and started to extend it, enlarged areas of cotton production. However, since 2016, is agricultural policy is changed, and right now is agricultural policy more focusing on to produce mostly cash crops like fruit and vegetables, and then the other kind of this products which high demand in the other countries and especially nearby our countries. So still, but here are some restrictions. Why? Because the main export markets still is Russia, our neighbors, Russia, Kazakhstan, China, Turkey. In some Turkey is we are exporting some these fiber products, and Kyrgyzstan, and to some watermelon and such kind of fresh products. So here are some, if you see some changes, dynamics of from what products is the share is decreased or increased. You can see it is in the below below is cotton. Share of cotton tremendously is decreased, and comparing the 1991 and 2020 last year, and the same case with wheat production. Instead of these two crops, is like we said, we already established procurement price for two crops. There is, you can see it's some, you can see some yellow, not yellow, it's sort of like brown type. Here is potato, and yellow is vegetables, and the share of potato, vegetables, and fruits and melon production is increased. Comparing to in the early stage of independence. Yeah, it's here, if you can see it, maybe our Uzbek colleagues already is, they know about this, what types of agricultural farming is existing. Here is Dekan farmers. In Uzbek language, we say Dekan, but household or subsistence farmers. There are small farms, although they are producing, still they are producing around 60% of this agricultural commodities in the country. Commercial farm or peasant farmers, we are saying farmers, the ordinary farmers, they are producing 35% of this total agricultural products, but recently establishing is new type of like farming. It's a big farming instead of shirkats or cooperatives. Right now, this existing are establishing agricultural agroclusters. Agroclusters includes, as you know, is all chain of value from this growing up to final products. But still, they are it's like in this case, still their share is small in agricultural production, but the year by year their share is substituting, getting larger instead of decreasing of share of commercial farms. So problems is existing in agriculture of Uzbekistan. Here we still have a water scarcity. As you know, Uzbekistan is transboundary. We have transboundary issues because of 2/3 of the water resources forming outside of the country, especially the water is for irrigation comes from Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. And therefore, we have some water scarcity problem. In that case, we have the impact of climate change, and thus these issues agricultural policy is changing starting 2020, and this year a lot of subsidies is giving to farmers or to producers who are implementing drip irrigation or modern technology of irrigation system. And also salinization, land salinization, degradation, still a problem is especially western part of this country because of this inefficient use of water resources, and those irrigation system not operating well. And its main restriction of this export is lack of terminals or logistic centers, which we can export to keeping or to storing our fresh products to other countries. In this case, around west of today, we also talked about the west of this agricultural west or loss of agricultural commodities. 2 years ago, it was 30%, but year by year, this share is decreasing instead of the increasing of such kind of logistic centers. Of course, packaging, another problem, and then also lack of this contracts, regular contract customers. We have to find agricultural ministry and the agricultural government is looking such kind of regular customers or regular markets to export to agricultural commodities outside the countries. And there is financial and trade system and price volatility is during the season time when this in growing season. So this problem is existing. How this agricultural sector is focusing to develop. Recently is adopted agricultural development program. Starting from 2020 up to 2030. Here you can see in this presentation, you can see main highlights of this program. First one is diversification. We already talked about the diversification. Why? Because of not only producing such kind of cotton and wheat, and a lot of untraditional crops is started to produce in Uzbekistan. Yeah, like for example, you can see different types of different breeds of the new varieties already is implementing in agriculture of Uzbekistan. Second one is, of course, improvement land and water use relationship. Already we talked about this implementing of the water saving technology, and then also laser planning for in agriculture, in soil science. Also creating favorable agribusiness climate and to develop or to increase high value added chain. And another is focus of in agriculture, support of cooperation relationship between farmers, between producers, and then producers and the processors and the other agents in agricultural production. Extension service, why? Because this extension services already is establishing each provinces of Uzbekistan. We are saying AKIS. AKIS means like agricultural knowledge and innovation system sharing. It's, for example, in Samarkand is already establishing in our branch. We are pleasure to host this institution in our branch, in our institution here. Why? Because there's a lot of farmers is coming to get some advices, and there will be like consultancy services for producers, for processors, all types of this agricultural producer, all kinds of agricultural producers. Implementing, of course, know-hows in agriculture sector, another issue, because of paying more attention from government side to science, to implementing science and new technology in agriculture production. Another one is, of course, is capacity. Today, on the framework of the Topaz project, a lot of my colleagues, our colleagues from Retail College and then from Poland, and they already talked about the increase of capacity building. Without increasing capacity building, we cannot improve agriculture production in the future. So another topic is, of course, giving more attention to food processing. And therefore, here is, you can see in the presentation, a lot of projects is started or given green lights to those projects, especially, for example, 162 projects, fruit and vegetable processing, to build this fruit and vegetable processing facilities, and then also meat and dairy processing facilities. 39 projects is started, and also is built storage of fresh and processed fruit and vegetables, and also packaging issues, and also this producing soft drinks. Such kind of projects is focusing on to increase, to develop food processing in the country. There are some government agencies, they are started new issues or new Hoftes program to develop agriculture in Uzbekistan. There you can see some numbers of what kind of projects and what this focus they are toward to improve to increase of agriculture in Uzbekistan. Another is, of course, today is the main topic is today is paying more attention to export of agricultural production to other countries. There are some policies for export promotion. Already issued some adopted some government regulations. In the framework of the regulations, exporters were exempted from income and value-added taxes. It's giving some privileges to exempt their exports as is existing in developed countries like Germany in the European Union. And subsidies, they are for if producer is exporting commodity to outside of the country, government is paying 50% transportation cost. And also there are some some tariff is eliminated, bordering technology, who would like to implement the agricultural sector. And also introduction new international standardization certification system like organic or global GAP system and concerning of food safety issues. And also reimbursement of participation foreign international companies when they would like to come to Uzbekistan, they would like to organize seminars, training, trade missions, and etc. In the same case, financial assistance is given to local producers who they would like to organize business seminars, trainings, trade missions, and business forum in the world. So this is my short presentation in about support policies of Uzbekistan. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hasanov. Katta rahmat Shavkat aka, Shavkat Tursunqulovich, sizni prezentatsiyangiz uchun. Ruxsatlaringiz bilan biroz o'zgarishlar bo'ldi. Demak, bugungi kundan ikkita prezentatsiya ertaga qoldirildi, ertagidan bugunga o'tkazildi. Ertaga demak germaniyalik va ukrainalik hamkorlar hamda o'zbekistonlik hamkorlarning hisobotlari va eshitiladi, prezentatsiyalar eshitiladi. Dear participants, dear colleagues, so we will have some, we are having some changes on as you see, changes on agenda. So my presentation from Andijan will be presented for tomorrow, and tomorrow we expect presentation from our German and Armenian colleagues on the beginning, and followed by presentations from Andijan and Samarkand. So and for conclusion of first day, so floor given to Professor Dr. Ralf Schlauder. Ralf, please. Your micro is off. Microphone push. You can now turn on your micro.
Now I can. Everything is fine. Thank you, Farhad. So I think before we are coming to the conclusion for the first day, we should give the chance if somebody has a question to ask about one of the 4 presentations we have had. Farhad, will you translate, please?
Yes. Rahmat, uzr, Girmayor hamkorim eslatdi. Bugungi prezentatsiyalar bo'yicha savollar bo'ladigan bo'lsa yoki muhokamaga chiqadiganlar bo'ladigan bo'lsa, marhamat, Zoomdagilar yoki zaldagilardan bo'ladigan bo'lsa, marhamat.
We know that online is a good possibility that from all over the world people can participate. But sitting together is something different. So we have also the challenge to deal with this online dissemination event of Topaz also. Please just translate.
Albatta online uchrashish bu yaxshi imkoniyatlar yaratyapti, lekin bu hech qachon an'anaviy ravishda yuzma-yuz uchrashib muhokama qilishni o'rnini bosolmaydi.
So I would like to open the floor first if there is a question to one of these 4 presentations. The first was about placement from our colleagues from Poland, from Stanislav. The second was about food value chains, vegetable and fruit in UK from Henry. The third one was about student-centered learning challenges from Nikki, also UK. And the last one was from our colleague, Director Shabbat Hassanov, about agri-food primary production, export development. Are there any questions about the presentation we should clarify first?
Dastlab sizlardan so'raymizki, o'sha bugungi 4 ta prezentatsiya, 4 ta ma'ruza bo'yicha savollar bormi? Birinchi ma'ruza bu polshalik hamkorlardan Stanislav Mentadan tomonidan berilgandi. Bu talabalarni amaliyotga joylashtirish masalalari bo'yicha. Ikkinchi prezentatsiya ma'ruza angliyalik hamkorlarimiz Gender Matthews tomonidan o'sha COVID-19 ta'limning Yevropa ittifoqidagi meva va sabzavot bozoriga ta'siri. Uchinchi prezentatsiya bu angliyalik hamkorimiz Nike Van Vigel tomonidan talabalarga yo'naltirilgan ta'lim bo'yicha va 4-chi prezentatsiya Shavkat Hasanov tomonidan, demak O'zbekiston qishloq xo'jaligi ishlab chiqarish bo'yicha edi. Marhamat, shular bo'yicha savollar bormi?
Okay. I do not see any hand lifted in our conference. So I guess there are 2 possibilities. Either you will ask your questions directly to the presenters, or there is no question. But the second one, I'm not sure about this. So what is the conclusion about our first day, and what are the results we have heard? I would like to start first with our last presentation of Director Shavkat Hasanov.
Demak, savollar bironta qo'l ko'targan qo'llarni ko'rmayapman. Demak, bu yoki savollar bevosita ma'ruzachilar o'ziga berilgan yoki hech qanaqa savol yo'q. Men savol yo'q deb o'ylamayman. Savollar bo'lsa kerak. Demak, xulosa qiladigan bo'lsak, men oxirgi prezentatsiyadan Shavkat Hasanovning prezentatsiyasidan boshlamoqchiman.
And if you allow me, I give a first feedback and conclusion out of it, and we'll put it together with the other sessions. I would like to ask you afterwards to add your opinion that we come to a more holistic view of what this first day has brought to us. Director Shavkat Hasanov has clearly shown the importance of agriculture in Uzbekistan. From one side, the part to the GDP, and that more than 1/4 of the population is involved in agriculture. The strategy of the state to use agriculture for exports and to improve agriculture, and combined with this, all the needs about new technologies, new approaches, good stuff, who is able to fulfill this. So now we are directly in the field of what we have tried to do with Topaz, and what was also shown by Nikki, that we need for good stuff, we need to change maybe our attitude of teaching and of learning. And I may tell you also, this is not only a result which is for you interesting, but also for us by working on it, how important it is to make student-centered learning. Farhad, I hope it's not too much for translation in one step.
I'll try on my best. Shavkat Hasanovning prezentatsiyasi mavzusida qishloq xo'jaligining ahamiyati, O'zbekistonda aholining qariyb 4/1 qismi qishloq xo'jaligida band ekanligi va sohaga yangi texnologiyalar, yangi bilimlar, yangi investitsiyalar kiritilayotganligi to'g'risida ma'lumotlar, xulosalar berildi va bu ishlarni, bu tadbirlarni amalga oshirishda albatta bilimlar, yangi bilimlar, yangi ko'nikmalar kerak bo'ladi. Bu o'sha biz berilgan prezentatsiyalarda, masalan, Niki van Wegelning prezentatsiyasi berilgandek, o'sha o'qitishning, ta'lim berishning yangi usullarini ham talab qiladi deb o'ylayman.
It's a big challenge for us as lecturers and professors to change. It's a big challenge for us to come to another way of learning and teaching, and to involve the students much more than it was in the past. But it's necessary because technology approaches are developing so fast. We get so much new ideas. We cannot know everything, but we know about the approaches, how to deal with, and this we have to give to our students.
Demak, bu qishloq xo'jaligida, agro sohada bo'layotgan o'zgarishlar juda tez ketyapti, yangi texnologiyalar kirib kelyapti. Bu biz uchun, ya'ni qishloq xo'jaligi ta'lim sohasi, umuman ta'lim sohasidagi barcha professorlar, o'qituvchilar uchun juda katta bir chaqiriq bo'lib xizmat qiladi. Biz bu yangi texnologiyalarni, yangi bilimlarni berishga va o'zlashtirish uchun, demak, o'z hissamizni qo'shishimiz kerak, shu bilan barobar ketishimiz kerak.
And this one part is the students we are teaching, we are lecturing, and the other part is where we are service, and the other part is the enterprises, the farm enterprises, the farms, which need support in this development to adapt new technologies. So the close relation to farms. And we have different possibilities, which we have seen by the presentation of Stanislav about the placement as one part, and about contracts between university and farmers to develop together an approach how universities are as close as possible at the side of farms to support them in their development.
Demak, bu sohada bizning faoliyatimiz ikki tomondan iborat. Birinchisi xizmat ko'rsatish bo'ladigan bo'lsa, bir tomonda talabalar, ya'ni talabalarni o'qitishimiz, ularga xizmat ko'rsatishimiz, ta'lim berishimiz kerak. Ikkinchi tomonda esa qishloq xo'jalik korxonalari, fermer xo'jaliklari, umuman dehqon xo'jaligi, turli xil qishloq xo'jalik korxonalari bor, ularni biz qo'llab-quvvatlashimiz kerak. Yangi texnologiyalarni o'zlashtirishda, yangi texnologiyalarni yaratishda o'zlashtirishimiz kerak va bunda xuddi bizni hamkasbimiz Stanislav Mentaning ma'ruzasida aytib o'tilgandek, ular misol qilib ko'rsatilgandek, universitet va fermer xo'jaliklari o'rtasida shartnomalar musaga keltirdi. Bu shartnomalar, demak, amaliyot bo'yicha shartnomalar va boshqalar ko'rsatildiki, bu universitet yoki oliy ta'lim va qishloq xo'jaligini, fermer xo'jaliklari o'rtasida bog'liqlik qanchalik muhim ekanligini ko'rsatib beradi.
And how fast and how tremendous changes may come to us have just shown by COVID, which has us forced to change our teaching to online teaching, and which has also been a very big challenge for enterprises in the food value chain, as Henry was showing, where some of the enterprises working since a lot of years have to give up because they cannot adapt to the situation, and new enterprises are coming up and taking the chance of this change. We are the universities which have the knowledge to support such developments in both directions, to support the new upcoming enterprises and also to help the ones who have to step out of business. Both is our responsibility, and both is only possible if we are close to the enterprises.
Demak, bu sohada tarmoqda o'zgarishlar juda tez kirib kelyapti va kutilmagan o'zgarishlar bo'lishi mumkin. Masalan, Covid pandemiyasi bilan bog'liq bo'lgan o'zgarishlar, bu ta'limga ham katta o'zgarishlar kiritildi. Onlayn o'qitish tezlik bilan joriy qilish kerak bo'ldi. Bir tomondan ta'limga ta'sir qilgan bo'lsa, ikkinchi tomondan demak oziq-ovqat tizimiga, zanjiri ham katta ta'sir qildi. Yuqorida aytilgandek, demak bu yerdagi oziq-ovqat ishlab chiqaruvchi va yetkazib beruvchilar yangi sharoitlarga tezlikda moslashishga majbur bo'lishdi. Albatta bu yerda moslasha olmaganlar bo'ldi, ular biznesdan chiqib ketishga majbur bo'ldi va yangi korxonalar bu tarmoqqa kirib keldi. Biz oliy ta'lim muassasalari, universitetlar bu ikki turdagi korxonalarni ham qo'llab-quvvatlashimiz kerak. Ishlab turgan korxonalarni qo'llab-quvvatlash va yangilarni ham qo'llab-quvvatlashimiz kerak.
So now project like the from European Commission supported TOPAZ project offered a chance to tackle such issues. And we have supported and developed materials in the different fields like placement, like data, what we will listen tomorrow, like interaction with farm enterprises and with other enterprises, and made also training for the university staff about how to deal with. And I'm very happy that we have a handbook where all this information is also written down and can be used in the long term.
Sorry. Demak, TOPAZ loyihasi bu yuqorida aytilgan imkoniyatlarni, yuqorida aytilgan muammolarni yechishga imkoniyat yaratib berdi. Yevropa Ittifoqining moliyaviy ko'magi yordamida bu yerda ertaga biz taqdimot qilamiz, ma'lumotlarni ishlab chiqarish jarayonlari haqida ma'lumotlar bazasi haqida, ishlab chiqarish amaliyotlari haqida, yangi ta'lim usullari haqida hammasi demak ishlab chiqildi va eng muhim tomonlardan bittasi bu bo'yicha uslubiy qo'llanma yaratilib, u chop qilindi. Bu uslubiy qo'llanma demak yuqorida aytilgan maqsadlarga xizmat qilishi mumkin.
But all is based on a friendship and common cooperation between our universities and by the willingness to support each other. It's one step what we have done with TOPAZ. The world is turning. Now ideas will be needed, and it's very important that we think about what are the next steps where we have to cooperate, where we have to take care for, and how we can support each other in this way. And I'm very hopeful about that from our experience from the last decades where we are already cooperating, that in future we will also find solutions for our farmers and for our universities in a common cooperation in between your universities and our universities.
Demak, loyiha doirasida faqat hamkorlik, balki do'stlik aloqalari ham o'rnatildiki, bu aloqalar ushbu sohadagi hamkorlik ishlarini yanada rivojlantirish imkonini beradi. Bizni oxirgi 10 yilliklar, dekadalardagi oxirgi ikki dekadadagi davom etib ketayotgan hamkorligimiz qandaydir ma'noda, qandaydir ko'rinishda, shaklda davom etadi deb o'ylayman va ushbu yuqorida aytilgan maqsadlarga xizmat qilishda demak bizning muassasalarimiz davom etadi deb umid qilaman.
So, and now I would open the floor. If somebody wants to add something about this first day from your side, please feel free to add or to ask.
Hozir so'zni sizlarga bermoqchiman. Kimdir shu sohada u bilan bir fikrlari bo'ladigan bo'lsa, marhamat, qatnashchilar barchasi o'z fikrlarini bildirishlari mumkin. We have Carlos Machado online, so he is one of evaluators of project, actually external evaluator. So, Carlos, could you make some couple of words? William?
Maybe his micro is unmuted. You have to unmute it for him. It's centralized, unmuted.
It's unmuted. It's nice to see all colleagues from all our countries. We have. I would like to thank all colleagues.
Good afternoon to everybody.
Hi.
Yes, I think unfortunately we cannot be still present. This it would have been good to have an event. I deactivated the sound. Wait a minute.
We are hearing you.
You hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yes, I was saying that
Carlos, I think it's okay. You just can talk. You can just talk.
Yes, okay, because I was hearing myself with some seconds of delay, so it was a strange feeling. I hear myself. That's a strange thing. Already.
So you better turn your YouTube off.
Exactly. Yeah, it was because I had problems with Zoom because it absorbs all the resources. Now it's fine because I was hearing with echo and I was surprised. So I think the YouTube idea is good. I like it because the Zoom was absorbing a lot of resources and then I could not use it properly. It was very slow. But with the YouTube, you have direct stream. So I think it was a good idea from Farhod and the organizers. So from my point of view, I wanted to say that unfortunately we are still in these conditions, and it would have been really good to be able to meet together and to discuss pending issues, especially about sustainability, future projects, all these kind of things is better when you do it face to face. There is talking also with other colleagues and other people from higher education sector, and there is a bit of Zoom tiredness, no? So only Zoom. Sometimes it's not very productive. Of course, it has certain advantages, but in the long term, it's important to have these physical contacts. I think in general, I would have liked to see the presentation of Farhod regarding sustainability, but that will be done tomorrow. I think you've been done good progress. I was looking at the Moodle, the information provided there. I don't have high remarks. I think you had great cooperation between the partners. You tried to give the deliverables that were expected in the proposal. The project obviously has been impacted like all other projects in Erasmus Plus due to the situation. So the only thing we can do is the best out of it. Fortunately, I was reading that in Uzbekistan situation is better compared to Armenia, probably. But even I read some articles that you were going to herd immunity, so life is going, if not to normality, but at least you can do things that we cannot do in Europe yet. So for that, I congratulate you. So it's good that the students, they can go to university, and if this is a practical oriented project, of course, you need that the students do the placements and they go to the workplace and they acquire certain competencies that they cannot be achieved via Zoom or via online. So if you have that flexibility and that facility, I think that is already very positive. I will conduct after before the end of the project, the official ending of the project, I will start distributing some questionnaire, and I will try to contact each of you so that I can prepare my final external evaluation. But in general, I think the project has shown to have the high quality expected from this type of projects, and I just hope that you can continue developing ideas and continue working in capacity buildings in the project in the future. And just adding on this, this year there will be no calls, but it's foreseen that in 2022 there will be new calls. So probably the new program guidelines will appear, I think, for what I heard in like September, October. So some projects, some programs, they will start already in 2021, but not the capacity building ones. So I think that is all by now what I can say from my side.
Thank you, Carlos, for this information from your side. And I think the partners can also say that the team was working really close together and trustfully with each other. And I think that's one of the most important bases for success, that you trust each other and you can rely on each other, that the work is done. And I don't know if maybe one of the other European partners wants to add a word from your side. If not, I don't want to make it more long as necessary, because Carlos, you're right. We have each day several hours of Zoom. And we know that it's restricted. Zoom is good to do something, but the other parts are missing. To look into the eyes, to talk to each other, the small talks in between, which give new ideas for what is going on and not just concentrating on one topic. We are looking forward for this, but in Germany, you know, the COVID figures are going up again. We are in the third wave. I would have liked to travel to Uzbekistan, but there is no chance at the moment for German professors. Okay, so Farod, I think the first day is done. I want to thank everybody for the presentations. I also want to thank for all the participants to take the time to follow. And I'm really hopeful that what we have done is coming into the normal lecturing in the university in the cooperation with enterprises, because I'm 100% convinced it is needed. So from our point of view, in the name of the TOPAZ project team, I would like thank you everybody very much. We wish you a good afternoon, stay healthy, and we will see us again tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. And we had a raised hand from Henry, probably Henry, if we can postpone it for tomorrow.
No, sorry. Yeah, no, sorry. I was just going to echo the thoughts of Ralph, because neither Nikki or I are available tomorrow. So I would just like to say that with all of these projects, we get as much from it as we do the other participants, and we're very grateful that we're able to share our knowledge, and we learn from you as much as you might learn for us. And although as the pariahs of Europe, we are still very keen to be involved with projects and to share our expertise and learn from you in the future. And I think of the projects I've worked on, the cooperation between the various partners, institutions, both in Europe and in Central Asia and in Ukraine, Armenia, has been exceptional. So we, on behalf of Nikki and myself, we thank you for that, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henry. So we expect you tomorrow, same time, 9 o'clock by Central European and 1 o'clock by Uzbek time. Уважаемые участники, спасибо за ваше участие и терпение. Завтра в то же время мы начнем по тому же адресу Zoom. Спасибо за участие. До завтра. Hurmatli ishtirokchilar, ertaga xuddi shu vaqtda Zoom'dagi xuddi shu adres bo'yicha konferensiya o'z faoliyatini davom ettiradi. Hamma ishtiroklaringiz uchun rahmat. Jo'rabek. Jo'rabek.